everyone, this is Christina from the Bloomingdale Library. We're back with another craft. Today's craft is a handcrafted felt baby mobile. Here are some of the things we're going to need: scissors, felt, an outline of our craft. We're going to use embroidery thread, and I have a big needle here with a large eye opening, a pair of scissors, and a variety of colors of embroidery thread that match my felt. I'm also using the inner ring of a 9-inch embroidery hoop and a couple of pins. So that's it. We're going to get started and I'll show you how to start. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut out our design. The design that we've gone with today are clouds and raindrops. So we're going to do white clouds and a colorful assortment of raindrops. So what I'm going to do first is cut out my design, the cloud and the raindrop, and then I'm going to trace them onto the surface of my felt. Okay, so we have traced our designs out and we've cut our shapes, put them on the felt, and I'm going to cut my felt to size, and I'm just going to quickly trace this. Alright, when you're done tracing your shape, you want to cut it out on the inside. You don't want any of those black marks showing. So we're just going to quickly cut this out, starting from the inside. Alright, so we've cut out one. Now the nice thing about felt is that you don't have to trace it again. You can just place your first cutout shape on top of another piece of felt, pin it together, and then hold it while you use your scissors to cut along the outside of the top shape. And continue to do that to produce at least 3 clouds. We're also going to use our white embroidery thread, and we're going to do a simple stitch around the edge, leaving about 1.5 inch gap so that we can stuff our cloud a little bit later with polyfill. And the way that you separate a single strand of embroidery thread from the 6 strands is to just grab a hold of one piece of embroidery thread and then just pull it away from the rest so it kind of accordions out. So you're just going to put a little knot on the end of your string, and we're going to start from the middle edge so that we can hide our tail. We're going to poke that through, and here's a quick zoom in to see. Sorry that it's white on white, that's a little hard to see. But just poke your tail in so that it's hiding, and then we're going to sew over it to secure. Alright, so what you're going to do next is trace out your other design, the raindrops. I've traced a pattern out on the blue and the pink felt. Again, we're going to cut out our shapes inside of that black line, and then just like we did with the clouds, we're going to layer the shape that we've cut out onto another section of felt and use it as our template going forward. Alright, so we've got 2 raindrops. I would suggest keep going until you have as many as you like. I did probably about 30. And we've got some matching embroidery thread for our pink and blue raindrops. But before we get to sewing these up, and we've got a lot more to cut, let's go back to our cloud, and we're going to stuff it with polyfill. Now, I left a gap of about 1.5 inches at the edge so that we could stuff it. Go ahead and poke your finger in there, create a little pocket for that polyfill to enter, and grab some polyfill and start stuffing your clouds. And once you've totally filled your cloud up and you think it's just about right, just hold the 2 ends together while you sew, and any little pieces of polyfill that are escaping the gap, you can just trim off with your scissors at the end. Make sure when you do your final stitches to go in through the seam At the top, I like to secure it by going in one direction and then in another direction, and that way it's nice and tight. And snip off. So now your next objective is to create as many raindrops as you can. As you can see here, I made about 30. So I've gathered up some pink embroidery thread, one strand of pink embroidery thread, and we're going to sew together our raindrops the same way we did with the clouds, starting in the middle center and tucking in our ends, and then sewing over that end to secure, and then sewing a simple stitch around the edge. You don't have to fill these, but you can if you want to with polyfill. Alright, and once you've sewed up all of your raindrops and your clouds, we're ready to assemble them. So what I have here are an assortment of raindrops, and some I'm going to dangle just one, some I'd like to make a chain of a couple, so some are longer hanging than others. And the thing that I've seen a lot online when people are constructing their own felt baby mobiles is that they like to use these little beads, something that gives your felt a little bit of weight and does that nice spinning action, so it has some weight to it. What I'm going to do is make a little loop at the end for my knot, and I'm going to thread that through one of the wooden beads, and then I'm going to sew into that loop, so I'm securing the string to the bead. As you can see here, I'm just going through one end and letting that loop dangle out the edge of the other end, sewing through that loop, and that way it creates just a little security, so it hangs nice and I don't have to tie a knot around the edge. Just go through the other side, pull through, and then we can clip off those little dangly bits on the end. Okay, and once you have your bead secure on your string, pick out a raindrop, and we're just going to go through the very bottom, thread our needle through, pull all the way through so that the bead is touching the bottom of the raindrop, and put your needle through your felt again to secure. And then what I like to do is go from the bottom, the same place, and push up through the center of the two pieces of felt until we reach the tip of the raindrop, and then pull through, and then you're going to secure it to the cloud. So figure out what position where you want it to dangle, and then once you get that, just kind of pull on the thread, tug on it till you get it to the right height, and then secure it to your cloud. The best way to do that is to create a little loop and sew through the loop so it stays in place, and do that once or twice more. Alright, and then push your needle up through the center of the cloud so it comes out the top seam, and then you can snip off the end. And that's it. We've got one attached to our cloud. Only 30 more to go. Now for this next set, what I'm thinking of doing is attaching a few raindrops together to create a longer chain, and those are going to attach to the center of the cloud. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is make a loop at the end of my string so I can secure it to one of my beads. And then once my bead is secure, I'm going to attach it to the bottom of one of my raindrops. Now get the next raindrop that you want to attach in your series, pull through to about the length that you want it to dangle, and then once you've got a good length chosen, go ahead and secure that with the same way that we secured the other one to the cloud. Just pull through and make a little knot. And then when you've secured it, just cut through the seam. I ran out of string, so we'll have to attach it with a different piece of string. So I went ahead and attached another short one. I wanted to make this one a simpler cloud. So what I'm doing now is I didn't make a knot at the end of my string. I'm just gently pulling through until only a little bit of the tail appears, just at the tip top of the raindrop. And I'm gonna try and pull that through so you don't see the tail, but also make sure it's really tight and secure. So we'll do that a couple of times to make sure it's secure, and then we're going to attach it to the cloud. And once it's in position, just do it like you've done it before. Secure it to the cloud, put your needle through, pass through the loop, tighten, and then push through the top of the cloud, through the top of the seam, and then clip off. All right, so we've got one cloud down. Now we have 2 more clouds to go. So now I've made my other clouds, and for one of them I attached a whole lot of raindrops, another one a medium amount, and that first one that I showed you was my small cloud. Typically, if they all weighed the same, what you would want to do is make them equidistant from each other. So they would be roughly about the same space away. But since they're all weighing a little bit differently, when we actually place them on, they're not going to be perfectly separated from each other. So we'll just have to balance that out and see how it goes. So what I have here are 3 equal pieces of embroidery thread, and I didn't separate these out into single strands. These are the full 6 strands. Yarn would also work really well at this stage because it's nice and sturdy. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking the ends, a couple inches from the end, and I'm going to do a triple knot to make sure that my thread is really nice and secure on the edge of my embroidery hoop. So do that with all 3 pieces of string about equidistant from each other. Alright, now we've got all 3 pieces of string attached, and I'm just lifting it up to see if it's balanced. Now, at this stage, what I would also suggest is using a larger wooden bead. You don't have to use a wooden bead though, you can just make a knot in your string if you don't happen to have a bead. So I tried to pull all 3 threads and only 2 went. So at least my needle head is big enough so I can attach my embroidery thread and pull through the needle. So I've got all 3 strands have pulled through. And now I'm gonna hold it up and just see it's a little bit uneven. Those 2 sides are too close together, so I'm gonna scrunch those back a little bit. And just keep testing it to make sure that it's at the right spot and it's nice and even. And here's what it looks like from the side. That looks pretty even to me. So now what I'm gonna do is make a couple of knots in the string. You can do that so that you get your bead at the right height, and then you can even put a little bit of glue on your knots. And when you slide the bead up to meet the knot, just let it dry for a while. Another option is to tie your ends of your string around the bead to secure it. All right, looks good to me, so now we're ready to attach our clouds. We're clipping off the ends of those strings. Another option, if you want a more finished look for your mobile, is to wrap embroidery thread or yarn all the way around the hoop to cover up the wood, but I kind of like the exposed wood because it matches my beads. So now what I'm doing is I made a little knot at the end of my string, and I am securing it to the top of the cloud, and I'm going to go through a couple of times and secure that, making a knot each time. And then what I'm going to do is attach my cloud to the embroidery hoop and just do a simple knot, snip off the ends, and then use that long end to make a couple of knots around both the string and the supports. And you're going to do that with each one of your clouds. Like I said, one of my clouds is a little heavier than the others, so they're not going to be perfectly equidistant. So as you're putting things together, just try and gauge, what the best balance is for your creation. Make sure you double and triple knot so it's nice and secure. Alright, and here's the finished product. You can scooch your creations around here and there to make sure that they're nice and even, but as you can see, I made a variety of clouds. Some have a lot and some have a little. You can also do long strings of raindrops in between the clouds, or even make a larger cloud to go in the center of your mobile if you wish. And thank you so much for joining us today for our handcrafted felt baby mobile. We really enjoyed making this with you guys. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.